Ferencz was born in Transylvania in 1920. He and his family emigrated to America that year and settled in New York City. He attended Harvard Law School on scholarship, where he performed research for a professor who was writing a 2-volume book, Enforcing International Law, A Way to World Peace, which was eventually published in 1983. After he graduated in 1943, he joined the U.S. Army. He was assigned to an anti-aircraft battalion and fought in every campaign in Europe before being transferred to the War Crimes branch of the Army and given the task of collecting evidence of war crimes and atrocities committed by the Nazis. He was present at some of the Nazi concentration camps where they were when they were liberated, and he saw firsthand the horrors that had gone on there. He was honorably discharged from the Army at the end of 1945. Deeply affected by what he had seen in Germany, in his own words, he had peered into hell. He returned to the U.S. He was then recruited by Telford Taylor to assist with the ongoing Nazi war crimes trials in Nuremberg. Once there, he was sent to Berlin with about 50 other researchers to collect evidence from Nazis, offices, and archives. The evidence they found was overwhelming and detailed the culpability of many lawyers, judges, industrialists, and many more in perpetrating atrocities and genocide. He was appointed chief prosecutor for the, there we go with the German words again, Einsatzgruppen case, which had been referred to as the biggest murder trial in history. 22 men were charged with the murder of over 1 million innocent people, and all 22 were convicted. Ferencz was only 27 years old at the time, and it was his first case. He remained in Germany after the Nuremberg trials, working on reparation and rehabilitation programs for victims of Nazi persecution. When he returned to the U.S. in 1957, he entered private practice as a partner of Telford Taylor. He has spent much of the time since Nuremberg writing, speaking, and reflecting on how best to create a more peaceful world through the rule of law. He became convinced that the best way to do that would be through an international criminal code enforced by an international criminal court. He was a member of the Committee of Former Nuremberg Prosecutors for a Permanent International Criminal Court, and he addressed the conference in Rome in 1998 that resulted in the establishment of the International Criminal Court. Since then, he has offered his experience on efforts to define aggression. He has remained active in advocating and garnering support for the ICC.
We are now ready to hear the presentation by the prosecution.
This was the tragic fulfillment of a program of intolerance and arrogance. Vengeance is not our goal, nor do we seek merely a just retribution. We ask this court to affirm by international penal action man's right to live in peace and dignity, regardless of his race or creed. The case we present is a plea of humanity to law. We shall establish, beyond the realm of doubt, facts which, before the dark decade of the Third Reich, would have seemed incredible. For the methodical execution of long-range plans to destroy ethnic, national, political, and religious groups which stood condemned in the Nazi mind. Genocide, the extermination of whole categories of human beings, was a foremost instrument of the Nazi doctrine.
And as the sign says, here lies Tycho Brahe ad infinitum. It was put on by my oldest daughter about 30 years ago. Here lies Tycho Brahe ad infinitum. And that explains me, and I'll tell you what that means. I'm sure there's nobody here who knows what that means. Tycho Brahe was a Danish astronomer, and he lived before Columbus. And it was believed at that time that astronomers, Copernicus and Galileo, others, would be able to understand the meaning of the universe if they could study the stars. They see what's happening in the vast firmament. And Pico, who was a nobleman, persuaded the king to let him build an astronomical observatory in the town of Wen, which is near Elsinore in Denmark. Remember your Hamlet, go down to Elsinore, it's right off the coast of Elsinore. And he built this, he invented the telescopes, and he built an observatory there and charted the stars. He made a note every night, he'd go out and make a chart of the stars. Well, he did that for about 20 years. And the old king died. And young prince came on the throne and said, what's going on over there? We got a budget, but they're spending money. Go send some of his men out. General accounting office equivalent, and said, hey, wake up, people, because as you know, astronomers, they have to sleep during the day, but they work at night. So wake up, people. What have you been doing for these 20 years? He said, I've been charting the stars. You've been what? I've been charting the stars. Each one is very precise. I can swear to it myself. I observed it very closely every night, and I moved its movements in relationship to the other stars. He said, well, what do you got to show for it? He said, well, I have 75 volumes of all these charts. What do you hope to achieve? Well, if I live long enough, I hope to reach 100. I said, are you mad? What's the use of it? Well, he said, I must admit that I have not yet been able to figure out the meaning of the universe in this. But I believe that someday somebody will. And I will have saved that person 25 years later. And the interesting sequel is that when our astronauts landed on the moon, and I gave a civil of that to Mrs. Cowell, his close friend, when they landed on the moon, they had with them the tables of Tycho. So perhaps I've been wasting my life, but someday you may land on the moon too. Thank you very much.
Were there last year, and this man spoke for probably 35 minutes without a note, and he talked about the past, present, and future, and it so resonates with me about how vibrant he is intellectually. I aspire to be that vibrant at his age, so he left a great impression upon me, and this great story he told is obviously recorded, and but his other remarks too, if you haven't heard him or seen him, I think they're very compelling. And with that, I'll present this to Ben Ferencz, to his son, Don.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm very, very grateful to accept this award, not only on behalf of my father and the work that he's done, but also, as you heard in his opening remarks at the Einsatzgruppen case, those on whose behalf he has worked, what he called in his opening statement the plea of humanity to law. And those were words that he echoed on Friday, this past week, in the closing statements of the Lubanga case, where he was asked by the Chief Prosecutor, Luis Moreno Ocampo, to be part of the prosecution team. So, as he says, to reach for the moon, reach for the stars, he's still reaching, and he's still encouraging those of us here and those who will follow us to do the same. So, with that, I say thank you very much.
We were lucky to have Ben at the closing of the Lubanga trial. This is the first case of the ICC, and I opened the closing, and Ben did the final remarks. It was amazing, I have to say. But amongst the people who were present during this time was also Angelina Jolie. And on Thursday evening, both Ben and Angelina left. That's all I know.